Hello, and welcome to Two Crones and a Microphone. Today, we're very happy to welcome back our dear friend, Charlotte Starfire. You may recall that we did a prior podcast with Charlotte. We're delighted to welcome her back today. The first podcast was on grief, love, and living double. And you'll find that is podcast 71. Hello and welcome. I am Linda.
And I am Betty.
I'm Sally here.
And Charlotte, we want to welcome you back, and we'd like you to give us a brief introduction, if you don't mind.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm here today really as a grief educator, but also as someone who is deeply devoted to love and life. And, my journey these days, the way I express that love is really through through grief. I lost my son to fentanyl poisoning during the peak of that epidemic in 2023. There were close to 200,000 young people that year that died from it. It was the highest cause of death for people under the age of 40. So anyway, I'm here because there is, do I want to say, this word could be maybe offensive, but there is resurrection. There is an opportunity for transformation through this deep, deep portal of grief. And that's really what I'm about these days.
Thank you. We are so excited to have you back. And in this podcast, we're going to touch on several themes, and we'd like you to speak a little more about it. You are designing and creating a card deck that is going to be notable, I'm sure, and a related book with that. Would you mind telling us a little bit about that?
Well, sure. It's a deck called Grief and Grace Through the Chakras.
Yes.
It's a tool to support you in your grief journey through connection with your subtle body and your subtle energy system, based on kind of the chakra system. So each card is, when you pull a card, there's two chakras depicted. So in this case, it's the crown chakra, and this one that I call the ancestral chakra, which is the core of the earth. And so I pulled this one this morning, for example, and as I was preparing for this. And so the message that I got with this card is that my crown chakra, my spiritual self, pretty open, and it's a strength that I could draw upon during the conversation. And where I needed to focus and kind of awaken more energy was to remember my ancestors. And it was funny because I hardly do anything without honoring my ancestors. I do it most mornings, first thing, whatever. And for some reason this morning, I just pulled a card and I hadn't done my full ancestral welcoming. And I was kind of laughing because I was like, okay, Brett and Oceana. Brett's my son, Oceana, our teacher. I was like, okay, yeah, you guys get all the credit. Really, I'm just the mouthpiece. You guys get the credit. Yeah. So anyway, they both wanted me to be clear on that. So anyway, that was the
Fantastic. It's nice when those messages come through clearly.
Oh, yeah. And so typical of Oceana.
Oh,
so
please.
typical.
And my son, quite frankly, but the two of them together are a mighty team. Let me just say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the deck is done. The cards themselves are done. There's like about 90 cards. I'm still working on the because I've got the 9 chakras, so the 7 primary in the body, and then the ancestral chakra, and then the one that is kind of like the 8th and 9th chakras. I call it oversoul chakra. And so if you take, and there's a combination of all of those, it adds up to about 90 cards. So depending on how you pull the card. So for example, on the card that I pulled, the crown was on top. Well, the chakra that's on the top is one where you have strength and the energy is active, and the one on the bottom is one that's asking for attention. if you will. And so you can work with the energy, the chakra on top to awaken and balance the one that's on the bottom, right? Okay. So every card can be pulled. I could have pulled it this way. If I had, it would have been a different message, right? So anyway, I'm working on all those chapters, and in fact, I'm going to be putting together a small beta group of people that will they'll get the cards without the book, because the book's not done, and they will pull a card on like daily or 3 times a week or something like that, and they'll email me and say, okay, I got today crown on top, ancestral on the bottom, and that'll motivate me then to get that chapter done. I'll send them the rough draft of the chapter. Then their commitment is to give me feedback on how that resonated for them. So that's going to give me more. So it's not just my view on my grief and my how I'm reacting to chakras. It'll give me more input. So anyway, I'm going to be kind of putting that group together in June after I complete my grief retreat that we're doing up in the Smoky Mountains the end of May. So.
And how would someone get in touch with you if they might like to be part of that beta group?
Well, the best way to be in touch with me is through my Substack. I write articles on grief and poetry on grief and so forth through my Substack, which is Charlotte Starfire. It's all one word, Charlotte Starfire at Substack or whatever. So you just go into the Substack app and put my name in. I believe, I'm pretty confident I'm the only Charlotte Starfire. So you'll find me. And then
you are.
and if you subscribe, you can subscribe for free, or you can subscribe to donate and support my work. It's totally optional. But once you subscribe, then you'll for sure get all my stuff. If you just choose to follow, then algorithms play into whether or not you get my stuff. But if you subscribe, you'll get basically it's like a newsletter that'll go out directly to your email.
Right. I have subscribed, and that's exactly how it works. And I'm excited for the cards that you're putting together, because, as I get older, it's interesting. Things I haven't been able to think about when I was younger for whatever reason. I would say because I was so busy when I was younger, but now I'm so busy now that I'm older too. Doesn't seem to stop. But I have noticed that there are layers of grief that I have not acknowledged.
Mm.
So this is going to be perfect.
Yeah,
absolutely perfect.
Yeah, and the grief does layer. And sometimes when we're really busy, maybe we're in childbearing age, or we've got lots of family that we're taking care of, or what have you. During those years, we didn't take time to process the grief. And so then now, even though we're still busy, we know that our life horizon is shorter. We know that grief is a part of life, and it's kind of like it gets noisier in some kind of way, but in a way that actually I think is really healthy and good. I think the worst thing that people can do is try to, shove it in the closet, lock the closet door, turn the light off, and pretend that closet doesn't exist. That's when, because it is a natural part of life. And to silence that is to silence life in some ways.
Oh, well said. Well said. True. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's tough. Go ahead, Sally.
Go on, Betty, finish.
I was just going to say, it's a tough thing to face, but once you get through it, and you may never get through it. It's all layered, right? But once you acknowledge that it's there and you deal with it somewhat, it does make it somewhat easier. It really does. And any tool, there are a lot of things out there you can use, but this is the first time I have heard of a card deck dealing with the chakras and grief. So to me, this is really exciting, because if you've been listening to our podcasts, you know that we do a lot of energy work. We deal with energy quite a bit. And this is just another form of energy using the cards. They're great. They they will really trigger things, bring things in that you didn't expect, so
Yeah,
it's
and
a
as we
brilliant
know,
idea.
yeah, and I've submitted my proposal to Hay House Publishing under kind of a contest that they have through a program they call Authorpreneur. But so if I get selected, yay-hoo, I'll know by May 15th. If I don't get selected, yay-hoo, they're still going to give me feedback on my proposal. It's all good. But that being said, part of the proposal was I had to develop a marketing plan, and I had to look at specifically comps, other decks that maybe had some similarities, and I could not find. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, I couldn't find. I mean, there were a couple decks on chakras, but there was nothing on chakras and grief.
Right.
So, yeah.
I think it's stunning, and I'm going to tie it in. There were a couple ways I wanted to go with saying something when I jumped in, Betty, and you were sort of talking at the same time. So those of you who follow Minerva know that we're doing a crystal workshop on Tuesdays. We're on our 14th out of a series of 15. And in each of those workshops, when we're talking about the various crystals, we're also linking them to the chakras. So the beauty of this card deck is that people that are choosing to work with crystals in a healing way can easily link the crystals that work with the chakras that you're talking about and the cards that they're pulling. It will, there's a way to bring those two things together so that it's linking crystal healing with the messages that you're getting through the deck of cards in working with the various chakras. So I just see infinite possibilities with
No doubt.
how to
Absolutely.
work with
Yeah.
how to work with the cards. I think it's a brilliant. And the other thing I wanted to, we're sort of off the topic now, but I just wanted to tie in Oceana because you were mentioning her earlier. And, in the work that she taught all of us, the four of us that are here, in looking at grief, whether we're talking about grief transformed through the heart of the warrior or the death and dying work that she did, the Tene people's way of approaching death is pretty different than the Western world. And one of the things she always said is that people have a difficult time in the Western world acknowledging death, period.
Right.
And mortality, and what we want to do about that, and then any grief or feelings that might be associated with that, and all of the different tools that she gave us for how to approach the many topics that are on that spectrum, right, of dreaming, the little death, and dying, the crossing over to the other side. And so I love that we're talking about this topic. It's one that we've been talking about bringing up in the podcast for as long as I've joined the podcast. It's a hard subject for people to look at. But yeah.
David Kessler, who's my mentor, said that, basically we live in a grief illiterate culture. And of course, he wrote Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's books. And of course, Oceana also was connected that way too. So, kind of full circle there. But I do think that, I mean, I've really been thinking about this. Like, if I can't embrace death, how can I embrace life? There is not a single being on this planet that is not going to die. So am I going to just cut off and pretend that's not, I mean, how do I embrace life if I don't embrace death? I mean, it really is that simple. And yet we don't live in a society where we're witnessed as grieving people. And, it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. There's a lot to kind of unpack with regards to grief. I run grief retreats specifically for moms who have lost kids to substance use disorder or suicide. And so you can imagine the additional feelings of the moms of guilt or shame or anger or what have you that goes with those kind of complicated deaths, but then I have a really dear friend who also studied with Oshana. You guys may remember her name at the time was Betsy Vaught. She's now Betsy Winter, but she lost her son 3 months before I lost mine. She and I have gone through everything together. She's a really good friend, but her son died in part due to some malpractice of a doctor. And he had 3 young children. It was just very difficult. And, she just shared recently with a group of people in our yoga community about her anger and how, how she was able to work through that. And, those are the things that, unless you're with someone who has really experienced deep grief, you're not there, and most therapists never get grief training. Most, not all, but many do not. It is not part of the core curriculum for many therapists. So that's, so I think this work that David Kessler and other people are doing to kind of really bring a light to grief is really, really powerful work.
Well,
is,
I have a curious question for those just starting on their grief journey, and perhaps it's loss of a dear relative, or perhaps it's loss of a spouse, or perhaps loss of a fur baby companion. Any number of things can trigger that intense grief that, again, there's very little support for it in our culture. Completely agree. Do you have a little bit of a word of advice or thoughtful process you want to share?
Well, I would seek out communities or groups that are there to support you. I mean,
Excellent.
like David Kessler has a program. It's online. It's called Tender Hearts, and I think the fee is very reasonable. I can't remember what it is, but it's some monthly fee. But he literally, they meet 4 days a week. And he does one-on-one work with people one of those 4 days. And then there's also an opportunity for breakout groups particularly with people that are grieving this similar kind of loss, like parents that lost a kid between the ages of 10 and 17 versus those that lost a kid who's between 40 and 60 or whatever. You know what I mean? Like he breaks it all down.
Yeah.
So you can be with others, who've gone similar things. The organization that I run the grief group for is called Love in the Trenches, and we work specifically with those that have lost kids to or siblings to substance use disorder. So there's a lot of organizations and groups out there, and you have to just kind of find the one that you fit with. I mean, Compassionate Friends is a very well-known group that, and depending on where you live, you can have live meetings with them. Like where I live, there is that sort of thing. A lot of people do find communities through their churches, So, it's like you kind of have to find your place, but to do it alone, I think is the most difficult thing. I think the biggest gift is to place yourself in a situation where you're with others who are grieving similarly. And I know there's grief groups for people who have lost their fur babies. Like I know that, you know what I mean? So it's like, whatever your loss is, there's ways to find people of similar heart.
Lovely. Thank you.
And I think that's changed, because if you had said that 20 years ago or 30 years,
oh yeah, absolutely
that would not necessarily be so.
Yeah.
But Dee and I know a young woman that we're actually hoping will come on the podcast sometime, who created a support group for mothers who lost their children right in childbirth.
Yeah.
And so, that for a long time, whether it's miscarriage or losing a child in childbirth, there was no place for women who lost children that way to go to. And so she did something very like what you did, Charlotte. And that was, she was looking for people who had a similar experience so that she could talk to them.
Yeah.
ended up creating an organization that is now devoted to furthering understanding of what that is for people,
Right.
and to support each other. So
yeah, my mom lost an infant. I think the little girl lived maybe 6 weeks, but my mother literally, was checked into a residential, like what they used to call it, a psych ward or something. I don't know, for 30 days because the grief was so severe. And David Kessler says many of us were raised in what, a grief restricted family situation, and that even impacts everybody in the family. The little girl's name was Margarita, and 10 years ago, my sister and I were together on a trip. We don't spend a lot of time together all the time, but we were together on a trip, and we started talking, and I started talking about Margarita, and my sister said her name wasn't Margarita. And I said, yeah, it was. And she said, no, it wasn't. I said, I have her birth certificate and I've been to her gravesite. Her name was Margarita, but my sister swore her name was Penelope because my mom wanted to name her Penelope. Apparently, my dad wanted to name her Margarita. Well, my dad is the one who, the male in the family back in the day was the one who, handled that stuff or whatever. So anyway, but here's a bit, this little girl, we've all known that she was a member of our family. My sister was born after her, but my brother was alive when she was born, so, but anyway, so yeah, how do those things in those epigenetics actually affect us, right? It's all interwoven in there. So I'm glad that moms have an opportunity now to, deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, look, my great grandmother had 10 children. Only 2 managed to reach adulthood.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
In
when I
Africa,
started digging,
in Africa, that's the way it is still. That's
Yeah.
the norm.
Wow.
yeah, it's terrible. I mean, when I started looking back, some of them died at 3 and 4 years of age. Some of them died in birth. I was like, oh my God, how did you ever do this?
Yeah.
Really, it's and yet maybe that's why our culture is the way it is, because you just put one foot in front of the other. You had to just keep going on, and it wasn't acknowledged. Maybe they gave you some female comrade or like laudanum or something. I don't know.
But imagine if we lived in a matrilineal culture like the one that we learned about from Oshana, where the women would every 30 days go to the river, and whoever was grieving that month would be honored and held and taken care of, and her tears would go into the river and would flow out to the ocean. I mean, imagine if we lived in a culture where we were taken care of in that way, and all the women would come together to support each other. And I mean, just imagine like if that was built in, like in our culture, like I lost my son, my only child, and the bereavement days off at my company were 3 days. Now, my manager was generous, and so I got almost 2 weeks. But to be honest with you, 2 weeks, I was still in grief brain. I couldn't even remember my name. You know what I mean? But we live in this grief illiterate culture. But imagine if we lived in a matrilineal culture, I venture to say it would be different.
I am certain you're right, because there would also be the focus would be on this is a part of our natural life process. And it may not feel natural to have someone's life cut short that way. However, it's part of the natural process because we're all born under those same circumstances.
Well, plus as women, we know grief because the minute the baby's born, there's grief. The minute they're born, there's grief. The minute the umbilical cord is cut, there's grief.
I mean, there's that change. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, as women and also women, we know how to. We're always the ones who are dealing with the family's feelings and the family's, challenges and all. We take care of each other. That's just what we do. I mean, I just think we're biologically somehow, kind of geared that way. I'm not sure, but I think that so I just think if we had a culture that was more oriented towards that, and the women were kind of maybe running the show a little bit more, it would be different, honestly. And I don't just mean in the government. I mean, I'm talking.
Yeah. Yeah. And
No.
I love this thread and this thought. And Sally, I'll finish this one sentence and then please jump in, because it'd be really, I think, really nurturing and deep to develop a pick list or a wish list or a fulfillment list of the kinds of characteristics. How do we want to be cared for? Would there be a ritual? Would there be a gathering? Could there be a commemorative something? And how would we like to be held? So.
Well, and I think that list it's hard to create that for yourself because until
Yeah.
you've been through it, you don't, and when you're first in it, you don't even know what you need. In fact,
Of course
the
not.
last thing that we need as a griever is for somebody to say, "What can I do for you?" No, I can't even think of what I can do for myself right now. I'm not also taking on the job of telling you what you can do for me. It's the friend who shows up with the meal without being asked. It's the friend who
Yes.
sends you the comfy blanket in the mail without being asked. It's the friend who sends you love notes every day for a while. It's the, I mean, so even at what you're saying, Linda, it's the griever isn't going to be able to tell you
No.
the ritual, the whatever. But those of us that have been through it, we can look back and we can see what maybe works. You know what I
Sure.
mean? And we can
Yep.
create it for the others. So that's my 2 cents. So anyway, that gets me to my retreats and my workshops and all that stuff. I mean, I think that's what I'm trying to do is create that space for women to come
Good.
together and celebrate the love that they have with the person that is gone or the whoever,
Yes.
celebrate the love and let that be the biggest thing in the room. I
Mm,
mean, really,
mm.
that is the biggest thing in the room. It just shows up as grief. And then we don't know what to do with that, So, yeah, I think that's the path.
Would you mind telling us a little more about how someone could be in touch with you in order to participate in your workshops?
Well, yeah, my Substack is probably the best way to go.
Okay.
I even have like a little kind of like website on Substack, and then I also write articles, so they can kind of learn a little bit more. Um, Honestly, I've got this retreat coming up the end of May, so that may already have happened by the time you share this. I don't know, but uh, um, I've been really focusing on that. So after that's over, I'll start scheduling some other stuff. So, and I usually do one retreat a year, but I've some people that couldn't come at the time that I scheduled it are kind of begging me to come up with another date this year. So we'll see. We'll see.
Excellent. Well, oddly enough, we're almost at the end of our podcast time. And so I just wonder, Sally, you had something you might have wanted to add, if there's anything you'd like to add on this.
We're already past my comment, so I don't think we need to go backwards to that. But I'm wondering, Charlotte, if you're gonna draw a card for
Sure.
for one of
Yeah.
us, or just draw for all of us, or
Great.
you share the one you drew for yourself this morning, but it would be fun to.
Yeah. Who wants a card? I'll pull you a card.
I'll do it.
Okay. So I'm calling upon your ancestors also, Betty, to speak through the cards. And we're asking, how is your grief showing up? And the card that showed up was, oh, interesting. Second chakra, top and bottom. So second chakra is it's really the intimate relationship chakra. If because it's like when the baby first recognizes that this hand that's holding it is not its own hand, and they can actually understand there's mommy and me. That's really the kind of the development awakening of the second chakra. And the second chakra is really associated with the sensual organs of the body. It has a lot to do with not just like sensual passion, but passion in general, creativity, your artistic expression, all of that is kind of second chakra. And so it's both the strength and an area that can be needing attention. So it might be that you can think about, I would literally, you're an energy worker already. So you can go into meditation into the second chakra and ask it what it needs. What does my second chakra need? And with a commitment that you'll get the message and then like do something about it, right?
It. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing about the chakras is the energy changes minute by minute, not just day by day. So this could just be a moment in time. But it's definitely worth kind of exploring what
Sure.
might be going on there. Yeah.
Very appropriate for me, actually. So I'm not surprised at all. And, it just occurred to me, though, that our listeners may not know what the chakras are. And I don't know if we have ever addressed that in a podcast.
We have not.
Yeah. I'll give you a quick Cliff Notes version. You have an energy field. We've already talked about that. And what I tell my students is that your chakras are these little wheels. There's main chakras. There's a whole bunch of little ones also. But the main ones spin and they bring in energy to power up your energy field. I mean, that's a very, very simplistic
I like to think of them as kind of like the electric cord that you plug in. Like when the chakra is kind of like that cord that connects you with the universal energy, but it comes into your your central channel, the nervous system. And so there is a lot of movement in the energy, just like electricity moves. There's movement in that energy, but it does correlate to different parts of the body, different parts of the emotional system, etc. So, yeah.
It's a real in-depth discussion, and I guess we'll have to talk about doing a podcast on it. But this is great. I mean, you're spot on with me, I'll tell you, and I'll have to start looking at that. A little journaling.
Well, the book that'll go with the chakras deck will have like brief information and then exercises to be done.
Oh, good.
So they can learn about the chakras while using the deck. And I will be doing workshops and so forth on the chakras too. So, yeah.
Would you be doing any Zoom workshops, do you think?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Almost everything will be online. Yeah.
Good. That's really good. Yeah, because like our crystal class has been pretty successful. Now, of course, it's a class that is free of charge to introduce people to the different crystals, but it appears that this is the best way to reach people from different areas, different walks of life.
Yeah.
So that's great, awesome. Charlotte. I'm glad you're doing that. I'm going to sign up for sure.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much,
everybody. Yeah, thank you.
It's been fun. Absolutely fabulous. Thank you.
Yeah, we could keep going, but
yes. But for now, we'll bring our podcast to a close. And Charlotte, is there any one thing that you might want to share with our listening group?
For those that are grieving, what I want to share is they are not alone.
Oh, yes.
They are not alone. And to please reach out and find your people.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Wise indeed. And Betty, you like to say our normal farewell.
Well, I'd like to remind people that, they can access our podcast anywhere, Two Crones and a Microphone on a podcast platform. And also we're on YouTube. So if you're, tootling around the house, dusting or whatever, you could always just throw us on the TV and listen to the podcast that way also. Plus you get to see our beautiful faces. You'd be so lucky. Our classes are through minervaed.com, minervaed.com. So if you go there, you'll find a schedule. And don't forget, the reason we're doing all this is to help you navigate the muddy waters of our time.
Thanks.
And become the lotus flowers coming out of the mud.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly right.
Yes, beautifully said.
Love it. And I want to remind you to go find your glimmer. Those little micro moments are so sustaining.
I am very grateful to know amazing women, amazing people, but specifically I want to say amazing women. And Charlotte, your willingness to talk about a topic that is a struggle for many, many, many people. Talking about grief, talking about what that means, just what death means. And thank you for joining us and doing that. Remember always that you are surrounded in beauty. And that is one of the lessons that Ocean has shared with us, that even in the middle of a quagmire or the muddy waters, as you said, you talked about the lotus, that you are always surrounded in beauty. And there are others around you that can help you see the beauty in what might feel like just incredible pain. And so Kaydeeshday, all is made beautiful.
Kaydeeshday.
Thank you.
Hi, if you're enjoying Two Crones and a Microphone, please like this video and hit the subscribe button. Enjoy timeless wisdom from modern times, all served up by women in the know.